Every single blue-eyed person on Earth might be related to one person. One. Same ancestor. Sounds impossible, right? Because right now, if you look around, you'll see brown eyes, green eyes, gray eyes, hazel eyes. It looks completely random. But it's not. Somewhere between 6 and 10,000 years ago, near the Black Sea, something in one person's DNA broke. And that one broken gene? It's still living inside millions of blue eyes today. So what actually decides your eye color? And why did humans end up with different colors in the first place? Let's get into it. Eye color feels personal, like it's just yours. But biologically, it's one of the most studied traits in human genetics, and one of the strangest. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly why brown is the default human eye color. You'll know how one tiny genetic switch can turn brown into blue, green, or gray, and you'll understand why babies are so often born with blue eyes that change color months later. This isn't about fashion or fate. It's about a pigment, a gene, and a mutation that spread across an entire continent. And the story gets stranger the deeper you go. Let's start with what your eyes are actually made of. Here's the first thing most people get wrong. There isn't a brown gene and a blue gene. There's just melanin. The same pigment that colors your skin and hair also colors your iris. More melanin, darker eyes. Less melanin, lighter eyes. Brown eyes have the most melanin. Almost 80% of the world has them. Which makes sense. Melanin isn't just for looks. It protects your eyes from UV damage the same way it protects your skin from sunburn. In regions with intense sunlight, Africa, South Asia, the Middle East, dark eyes were an advantage. Less light damage, better long-term eye health. But then you go north, less sun, less pressure to produce melanin, and that's where things start to shift. Scandinavia, Northern and Eastern Europe, sunlight is scarce for months at a time. And in low melanin environments, mutations that reduce pigment don't get filtered out by evolution, because they're not dangerous anymore. Nobody's eyes are getting fried by UV rays they're barely seeing. So a mutation that would have been a disadvantage near the equator became neutral, maybe even useful. And once a mutation isn't punished, it spreads. There's actually a second theory here worth mentioning. Some researchers think lighter eyes, and lighter skin, helped early Europeans absorb more vitamin D from weak, low-angle sunlight. Less melanin blocking the light meant more of it getting through, so it might not just be about mutation surviving by accident. It might have been genuinely useful for staying healthy in a place where sunlight was scarce for half the year. Either way, the pressure that kept eyes brown near the equator simply wasn't there anymore up north, and biology doesn't waste energy defending a trait it doesn't need. Now here's where it gets genuinely wild. In 2008, researchers traced blue eyes back to a single genetic mutation. Not multiple mutations happening in different people. One mutation. One person. One time. It happened in a gene called OCA2, which controls melanin production. Right next to it sits another gene, HERC2. And inside HERC2, a tiny switch flipped, a mutation that basically turns OCA2's melanin production down. Not off, just way down. The result? Less pigment in the iris. Enough that instead of brown, the eye reflects light differently and appears blue. That mutation is estimated to have happened somewhere between 6 and 10,000 years ago near the Black Sea region. And here's the part that should genuinely surprise you. Every blue-eyed person alive today likely carries a version of that exact same genetic switch. Same origin point, same ancestor, thousands of generations back. Which means if you have blue eyes and I have blue eyes, we are, genetically speaking, distant cousins connected by one person who lived thousands of years ago and had no idea what they just started. Okay, so brown is high melanin, blue is near zero melanin. What about green? Gray? Hazel? This is where it gets more interesting. Green eyes aren't a separate pigment. There's no green pigment in the human eye. Green happens when you have a small to moderate amount of melanin, combined with something called the Tyndall effect, the same optical scattering that makes the sky look blue. Light bounces inside a low pigment iris and scatters in a way that reads as green or hazel to us. That's why green eyes are so rare, only around 2% of the world's population. It needs a very specific, narrow range of melanin. Too much, brown or hazel. Too little, blue. Green sits in this thin genetic sweet spot. Gray eyes, even rarer. Almost no melanin, but a different collagen density in the iris scatters light differently. And in certain lighting, cloudy skies, dim rooms, gray eyes can even look like they're shifting color entirely, from silver to blue to almost green. It's not the eye changing, it's the light around it changing. So really, eye color isn't a fixed category. It's a spectrum. Brown, hazel, green, gray, blue, all just different amounts of the same pigment, interacting with light differently. Here's the detail that gets people the most. Most babies, especially light-skinned babies, are born with grayish-blue eyes no matter what color they'll end up as. Why? Because melanin production isn't finished at birth. It takes months, sometimes up to a full year, for melanocytes in the iris to fully activate and produce their final pigment level. So that baby with striking blue eyes in the hospital? That might not be their real eye color at all. It's just unfinished, a preview. The melanin hasn't caught up yet. Some babies keep that blue. Most don't. By around 9 to 12 months, the melanocytes have usually finished their job, and the true color settles in. Brown, hazel, green, or, for a smaller percentage of the world, that same pale blue they started with. Which means, in a very real sense, every human being on Earth starts out with a version of that same ancient, low melanin mutation, before their body decides how much pigment to add. So no, eye color was never random. It's melanin, sunlight, and one 6,000-year-old mutation that quietly spread across half the planet. Next time someone tells you they have rare eyes, you'll know exactly why. Same story, different amount of pigment. So, what color are your eyes? Brown, blue, green, gray? Drop it in the comments and I'll tell you exactly what's happening inside your iris right now.